Star Trek the Motion Picture has been a pretty controversial film among Trekkies and film critics since its release in 1979. It is both loathed and admired to equal extremes. With this short video I have no intention of trying to settle all those arguments, but rather I simply wish to draw your attention to an interesting aspect of the story which I found while recently viewing the film. For those of you not familiar with the storyline, here's a quick summary. A giant cloud of energy is approaching Earth and the Enterprise is sent to intercept it. At the heart of the cloud, they encounter a humongous alien vessel which is travelling to Earth to seek out its creator. An alien probe takes away a crew member named Ager and replaces her with a carbon copy probe in order to communicate with the humans. It turns out that the alien, named Vger, is actually a Voyager 6 space probe sent from Earth hundreds of years ago to gather information about the cosmos. A machine race encountered the probe, decoded its programming, and then built the huge Vger exterior as a means for Vger to complete its programming. Vger has achieved consciousness and believes that its creator is a machine. Unable to find its creator, it threatens to annihilate the human race as it believes us to be an infestation interfering with the creator. After the Enterprise crew reveal that the humans are the creator, Vger physically joins with a human and evolves into a godlike being, and thus the human race is spared destruction. Now what I'd like to first draw your attention to is the film's most surreal moment, in which Spock enters a closed-off interior chamber of the gigantic Vger spaceship, only to find himself flying through a huge memory bank of Vger's history and journey across the universe. This trippy sequence is similar to the ending of 2001: A Space Odyssey, except it has a little bit of a voice-over narration from Spock explaining some of the symbolism to us.
Curious. I'm seeing images of planets, moons, stars, whole galaxies all stored here, recorded. It could be a representation of Vger's entire journey.
Spock eventually comes across this thing, a large version of the object embedded in the Ager imitation's neck, which we can assume to be a transmitter of information. The simple special effect appears to have been made by filming an out-of-focus plasma ball, which I found quite amusing considering some of the awesome effects that are seen elsewhere in the film. Spock mind melds with it, and the overload of information he receives is visually depicted as a succession of flash frames superimposed over his face. So, being the kind of obsessive movie buff that I am, I just had to play the flash frame sequence back in slow motion to see the content of each frame. And here are the results. As expected, we see some frames of what appear to be computer and machine components, possibly still frames of the Epsilon 9 station footage from early in the film. Here's a flash frame of what appears to be the Voyager 6 probe, which is what Vger began as. There are also flash frames of a woman's face and eyes at various close-up angles. Some of these are Ager, while the woman with short hair was seen aboard the Epsilon 9 station before it was absorbed and catalogued by Vger. Other face-like images are slightly harder to identify. This guy looks to me like a Klingon, which sort of makes sense being the Klingon ships were defeated and catalogued in the memory banks of Vger in the film's opening. A Klingon ship is also found in several frames, and this guy is definitely a Klingon. But here's the really interesting detail. Look at these crude blue outlines of a man and woman, accompanied by additional lines implying some sort of map or measurement system. These frames appear several times and are too specific to be meaningless, yet they are not consciously noticeable at the film's full frame rate. My first thought was that this is some sort of variation on Da Vinci's famous Vitruvian Man sketch, or perhaps a reference to Adam and Eve. But when I described this image to my partner, who happens to be a scientist and a little bit of a Trekkie, she immediately mentioned what is called the Golden Record. The Golden Record was a concoction of information included in the original Voyager 1 and 2 space missions in 1977. The basic idea was that, should an intelligent alien race encounter either of the Voyager probes at any point in the future, the Golden Record would be a sort of greeting or introduction, giving that race a basic idea of who had sent the probe. To that effect, the record includes images of humans and other life forms on Earth, images of the industrial and technological society we've built, and sounds from Earth. This is highly significant in the plot of Star Trek the Motion Picture because the giant Vger ship began as a Voyager 6 probe, although to date there have only been 2 actual Voyager probes. Related to this, the image of a man and woman that we see in the film is from something called the Pioneer plaque. It wasn't included with the 2 real-life Voyager probes due to apparent objections to their nudity and because the magazine Scientific American claimed the use of an arrow symbol wouldn't be understood by aliens. On the plaque is a depiction of our solar system with an arrow indicating which planet the satellite came from. Instead, the plaque was embedded on the struts of the satellites Pioneer 10 and 11, which were launched in 1972 and 1973 to explore the outer reaches of our solar system. Communication with these satellites was lost over 20 years after Star Trek the Motion Picture was released. Now, we could assume that in the film, Vger had, on its way to Earth, encountered one of the since-lost Pioneer probes. But the dirt-covered Voyager 6 plaque seen in the film includes a geometric spindle pattern very similar to that seen on the original Pioneer plaque, but with the human figures either missing or having been covered in dirt. So the makers of Star Trek the Motion Picture, who incidentally consulted with NASA during production, have taken liberties with the fictional Voyager 6 probe by having the Pioneer plaque included on it, despite it not being included in the real-world Voyager 1 and 2 missions. If the human figures were not included on this Voyager 6 plaque at all, then it could be a joke about the idiocy of the people who objected to the nudity of the figures in the original plaque. However, the presence of the figures in the mind meld between Spock and Vger suggests that Vger and the machine race that had built its large exterior vessel had actually seen the human figures somewhere on the Voyager 6 probe. Despite its vast information gathering and processing capacity, Vger and the machine race had overlooked this simple visual clue as to Voyager 6's origin and the identity of its creator. Vger's understanding was limited to the programming codes of the original probe while being blinded to a simple visual metaphor.
Vger has knowledge that spans this universe. And yet, with all its pure logic, Vger is barren, cold, no mystery, no beauty.
How fitting that Vger's final transformation and evolution beyond machine involves the joining of a man and a woman. And it's also a fitting parallel that this hidden Pioneer plaque detail, which Vger's colossal intellect had missed, has also remained hidden from audiences for over 30 years since Star Trek the Motion Picture was released. Thanks for watching.